Hello viewers, welcome back. We are now going to our next video, which is Autosum and font color. You know, these are also, the font color is within the home section of the ribbon. So we said the home section of the ribbon is something that we Excel used to put all the most common features that we can use within the Excel software. So now we need to do what we need to do. We need to start building things out. We want to put in some formulas in place so that we can get our income statement working. So we want to start making computations for gross profit, for EBITDA, or for EBIT and the net income. So let's go straight away to putting in some formulas so that we can get our income statement working. Right in this cell for gross profit, this is cell, it is cell F19. What we want to put in here is we want to do a sum function. As I said, here we are going to be adding, and the reason as why we are adding these values is not because for you to get the gross profit you have to add, is because we already have some values. The cost of goods sold is a negative number, so we can't say gross profit minus cost of goods sold, yet gross cost of goods sold is already a negative number which is in the bracket. Because if you say minus and a minus, it will become a positive, which will give us wrong answers. So since the cost of goods is already in the bracket, implying that it is unfavorable line item, what we do, we just add. If you add revenue, you add the cost of goods sold, you'll be able to get the gross profit. But since the cost of goods sold is already a negative number, when you add, it will be directly subtracting that value. So that's the logic. I don't want you, especially those that have an accounting background, I don't want you guys to get confused from this aspect. This is how it's supposed to be done, because we are addressing issues that can't be understood by those that don't actually have an accounting background. Because if you just leave all these favorable and unfavorable line items without, when they are all positive values, and then you just put in figures, it will be like someone is doing mathematics. Yet this is not mathematics. We are trying, though there are mathematical expressions that compute the gross profit, but we need someone to be understanding and differentiating that these are positive values and these are negative values. And the reason these are negative is because they are unfavorable line items. And these are positive because they are favorable line items. In other words, whatever reduces our revenue is termed as unfavorable line item. That's for the finance perspective, in the finance perspective. And that's the concept we want to be with. So with that understood, let's put in the sum function. So we can tap in here equal sign for our, but here we don't want to use the mouse. We want to be a little bit more with the keyboard, because that's our idea, is to make sure that at least we learn some of these things without necessarily using the mouse. The mouse will be used in those places that we think it would be quicker for us to use the mouse. So that's our idea. So we put in the equal sign and we put the sum function, SUM. You put in the SUM and then you press enter. You press the tab key. SUM, then the tab key, it's going to open, it's going to put in that SUM, it opens up the bracket. Now you are seeing what it is asking. It is asking for number 1, number 2, and so forth. So what we are going to put in those numbers that we need this function to sum up. So what we are going now to do, we are going to use the up arrow. We are going to use our arrow key, and we are using the up arrow. We go up, so we are picking these numbers. We are picking them from that. So we use the up arrow to pick those numbers. So now what we want to do, we want to highlight. Because if you press the up arrow again, it's going to jump. So what we are going to do, we are going to use the shift key to highlight upwards, like that. You press shift, then the up arrow to highlight those values. So when you have done with highlighting those two values that you want to sum up, then you can just hit the enter key, even if you don't close the bracket. But cautions here, you need to be careful. When you have only one open bracket, you can just leave it unclosed. But if there are more than one brackets, then you don't, if you press enter, it will not close. It will not bring for you the right answer. But here, you can just say enter, and it has subtracted those values for us. Then we can do the same for, we can also look for the EBITDA. But now before we look at the EBITDA, I want to explain something. There is a fastest way to do what we have just done. There is the fastest way. Let's first undo this. Control Z. We have that zeroed out. So what we are going to do, we are going to go into that same cell, F19. And now what we are going to do, we are now going to use a shortcut. And the shortcut that we are going to use is the Autosum shortcut. That Autosum is actually Alt equal sign. Alt key, then the equal sign. When you do that, it actually puts in the sum function, and it is automatically detecting where these numbers are, the numbers that we want to sum up. And then what we can do now, we can just come and hit the enter key. We press the enter key, and we've gotten the same answers that we've got using the first approach. It is the fastest way to do that, by just having that auto sum, alt equals, and we are done. So now that we've put that sum function in place, we can go up in that cell F19. This is the cell that we are in. Now what we want to do, we want to complete everything. Instead of us dragging here, copying and pasting the formulas there, what we can do, we are going to do what we call a fill right. In other words, we are filling horizontally, or we are filling to our left-hand side, sorry, to our right-hand side. We do a fill right. So what we are going to do is we are going to hold down the shift key. Then we use the right arrow to highlight across, like that. Then what we are going to do, we do a fill right. A fill right is Control R. Control R. And it has done a fill right. So we have filled. When you come and click in this, you'll find here from the formula section, you'll find that the formula, we are getting a sum function for that. So that's what we wanted to get. We've finally computed the gross profit. And I can promise that if you use the alt equals, that shortcut for Autosum, for an Autosum, it's going to be very easy for you to get these things very fast. And it is also that one shortcut that we are going to execute so so many times in this course. And in fact, it can even work horizontally. Remember here we've been adding vertically, but it can also work horizontally. Let's try to sum this revenue up, even if that's not what we want. Let's try to use alt equals there. Alt equals. You are seeing it plugs these values up to this point and it sums up those values. When you press the enter key, it adds up. 150,000 plus the 165,000, it gives us 315,000. So it also works horizontally. So it is a shortcut that we are going to use most often within this Excel fundamental course. So you've seen it has actually, you've seen it when we hit the control, the alt equals, it's going to grab those numbers to the left and do a sum function as well, as we've seen. But let's just delete this because this is not what we are after. What we wanted to do was just to get the gross profit. But I just wanted to show you that it can actually obviously do the horizontal summing of those values as you've seen in that case. So we are seeing that we have in this F19 the gross profit, our gross profit for that year, it's around, it's 82.5 million. Remember, all these values, they are in thousands. I don't want you to forget about that. We wrote it here, all values in US dollar, thousands, unless stated. So the year 2022 actual, these are actual values. It's $82.5, $0.5 US dollars. Those are the ones that we have in there, 82,500. So for that actuals of 2022. Now, what we want to do now, we want to calculate the EBITDA. This is the EBITDA here. The EBITDA is actually the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. That's where we've got that EBITDA. EBITDA. It's EBITDA. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So we want to compute the EBITDA value for 2022 actuals. So we go into that cell F22, and what we want to put in here, we want to put in an equal sign, because whenever you want to have any formula set in Excel, you are supposed to start with an equal sign. And now what we are going to do, we are going to grab our, let me first take this a bit, we'll be seeing all the data. We want to grab our gross profit, because for us to get the EBITDA is gross profit minus the SG&A. But now the SG&A, we are finding that it is already unfavorable line item. So instead of us deducting, we are going to add. We are going to get the gross profit is a positive value. We add SG&A, which is a negative value, and we shall be able to get our EBITDA. So we come here and say, we are just grabbing, so we use the up arrow, that plus this. We use also the up arrow. And we've gotten our EBITDA for that year. So what we are going to do, we do a fill right, just like the way we've done to the gross profit, so that to get the actuals for 2023. So we highlight, shift, right arrow to highlight across. Then we do a fill right, which is Control R. And we have also computed that value already. So we've seen now that we have 66 million or 66,000, because we have the thousands up there. So 66 million in EBITDA for the year 2022 actuals. So now what we want to compute the EBIT. The EBIT is earnings before taxes, meaning it is earnings before taxes, which means we've already deducted the depreciation and amortization plus interest to get our EBIT. So our EBIT is going to be, we put in the equal sign, we are going to put in the equal sign and we grab our EBITDA. Our EBITDA, we use the up arrow, that's our EBITDA, and we are going to subtract those values for depreciation and interest because we don't have amortization there. But now, since depreciation and interest, they are already negative numbers, what we do, we are going to just add. We get the EBITDA, which is a positive number, we add depreciation and the interest, which are negative numbers. It will subtract itself automatically. So we add, we use the up arrow again. So we are adding those, we are adding that plus that. So press enter. So that's what we've got for the EBIT. So that's what we've got from that point. So now the other idea, if you don't want to use this, you can actually come here and put in the brackets. Let's first undo that. Sorry. Let's first undo that. You can come here and grab the EBITDA using the up arrow. It is that plus. So we can put a bracket and we grab these values here. We highlight upwards. This one we make sure that we can actually sum them up, but this one is going to confuse you, but still it gives us the same answer. So it's an advanced way how you can put in something like that, but I think the other one would be better for us. Instead of putting that one, because we are adding these two, the value we get from this is what we add to this, which will be subtracting that value there. So we can actually undo that and we go with our first way, which is this. We grab the EBITDA, we come and grab that, we add this also, which is giving us the same answer. So we highlight across, shift right arrow to highlight across, then we do a few right, Control R, and we've gotten that already. So we go to our net income. We get now the net income, which is equal, this one is equaling to, we are going to get the EBIT, we less off the tax, we remain with the earnings after tax. Actually, the net income, those are the profit or losses. It's after we've deducted the taxes. So we get our earnings before tax, we less off the tax, and we get what we have. But since the tax is a negative number, we are going to have it as a plus. So this one we add that, and we have our net income. So we highlight across, shift right arrow, then we do a few right, Control R, and we've gotten our profit. So we've finished filling in all the values. So now with financial models and financial analysis, it is important to be able to identify the inputs and the formulas separately. It is very important because now what we are seeing, we've finished our financial model, but we can't identify which one is an input, which one is a formula, or which one we've computed and which one was there as our input. So we need to make sure that we separate those values, because it is customary, it's like it's the culture that we are getting readers to understand that these were the inputs we put in for us to be able to get these outputs out. So we need to separate them. And in fact, what we are going to do is to actually use colors, font colors. We make sure that we give inputs a different color from that of the output or the formulas that we've computed, because we've gotten gross profit after putting in a formula. So we need to make gross profit stand out to show that this was computed and it's a formula. So we need to give them font colors. And now we are going to basically use the blue and the black fonts, the font colors that we are going to use here. And it is convention to put inputs with the blue font and then formulas with the black font. It really stands out if you do that. So these numbers are already in black font. As you can see them, they are already in black. So we need to find the inputs and switch those inputs to blue. So we are going to highlight these inputs. We are going to highlight these inputs. Now the challenge is going to be, how do we highlight these inputs at once? There are two options that we are going to use. Let me show you the first option of how to highlight these values, of how we can actually change these inputs to blue. There are two ways. The first one is to, we first highlight all the inputs at once and we change them at once. Then the second one, we can highlight one, we change it, we change that, then we coming to the to change the rest of the items, we just do a copy and paste. But though it will be a copy paste special and all that. But let's go with the quickest way. We'll first highlight. For you to be able to highlight these values at once, what you are going to do, you first highlight the first one as you've seen. Then you come and press the Control key. When you press the Control and then you use your mouse to highlight these other values like that. You left click your mouse, then you highlight that one. Then we go to SG&A. We also left click and highlight that. We go to depreciation, was also an input, we highlight it. We go to interest, we highlight it. Then we also go to taxes. We're finished highlighting all the values at once. And now we can change them at once. And this is what I prefer. But there is also the other way, the professional way that we use, which is a bit more of using other shortcuts, which is also very fine. So we've selected these values, and now what we are going to do, since we know that font colors, they are within the home section of the ribbon, we have to make sure that we select the home section of the ribbon. So we go to Alt key, then we go to H for home, because that's where the font colors are. Then we can see that from our font color here, we have FC. So we press FC. And when you do that, you will see that we are going to see under the recent colors, because we've seen the color palette has come, but we have already been using some of these colors. So what we do, we just select from our recent colors, because we are going to use blue font color, and we've been using it, so it has come to our recent here, recent colors. So if you click on it like that, it's going to change all of those values to, sorry, we did not highlight all of them. First to do and do there, then we highlight again. We highlight this, Control, highlight that, sorry. So what we are going to do here is we are going to highlight these values. We are going to change these values to a blue. So FC, this is the blue color. But remember, for these values that are in black, remember when we are setting these brackets, we set them up as black. So that's why they are not changing. If you try to change them, they may not change to any color that you want. If you come and click here, they are not changing because we set them when we are setting these number formats for them to be in black. That's what we put. That's what we put there. But we can go ahead and change that. Control 1. We just adjust the formatting here. This is what we want to have. Now this one, we change it to blue. That's the only way they can change, because we had put their color to be black. So if you try to change it in the normal way we do that, then it will not come out. Reason is because we had maintained them to a black color. That's why they were not changing. So let's now go ahead and try to change. We have finished changing the font color for the inputs. Those are the inputs that we had. We can now come here and try to make sure that we put in something that is going to change, to create a good visual for our audience. We've changed the font color, the formulas are in black, and the inputs are now in blue. So what we are going to do, we need to have the other way how we can actually do that. To give you a little pro tip is that since you've seen how we did one, the other idea of changing these colors of these inputs is for you to come and first highlight the first one. You highlight, shift right arrow, then you change that one to blue. And after changing that one to blue, what you are going to do from this point is make sure that you copy, because the little pro tip I want to give here is that we know that F4, the F4 key, does what we call repeating the last command. So instead of you coming here and start changing these as the way you did to the first one, you can just highlight these other values like here, Control R, then you just place the F4 key. It will also do the same. It will just repeat the last command, and that's what I wanted to share as our last or the second option of how to change the font color to blue for the inputs. And you change everything down to the taxes. So we are all done with what we wanted to put. So now we can clearly see the difference between the input and the formulas, which is always very important, because when you go into a financial model, you want to know which numbers can you change. For example, the blue font are the numbers that we can actually lock down. They are the numbers that we can easily change, or those are the numbers that we put in. Then the formulas, they are the numbers that we've put in after application of a formula to that. So now what we want to look at here is we want to look at another way how we can find options of making these values look great in the viewer's perspective. We want to also do some more formatting, and we'll see how we can actually change some of those things. So let's jump in the next video, and that's what we are going to have in the next lesson. And we have to keep building this out and improving on the formattings of this income statement. So that's what we have for now. Let's go into the next video where we are going to be talking about adding indents. How do we add indents to our financial model? That's what we are going to see in the next video. See you there.